Understandings of social media cannot be only limited in technological level. It is necessary taking capitalist relations of production into account, because media industry is also a part of capitalism. As media in capitalism are primarily provided by private corporations, this requires looking at the corporate organization of the media and at the social impact of a commercial media system. This video, based on the book From Corporate to Social Media, will talk about the relationship between social media and corporate social responsibility, and the use of CSR in social media, and author's attitude refers to CSR's feasibility in society by comparing with other scholars.
So I was kind of interested in that topic and in the question whether actually that is making capitalism and corporations more socially responsible, or it is just hiding unethical and irresponsible business practices. And as I'm a media scholar, I was interested in how that concept is used in the media industries. And so you on the one hand see that the concept of corporate social responsibility, so it has the term social in it, became very popular in the 90s and 2000s, and at the same time the term social media became really popular. So in both of these concepts you have the term suddenly social being really important. And historically the term social was a term that was quite criticized by business studies researchers and scholars, like for example a very important economic theorist August Friedrich von Hayek. He's kind of one of the people who developed the underlying economic theory for what we know as neoliberalism today, and he was very critical of the term social. He said that it's considered something like distributive justice, social justice, and eventually also socialism, and he said we should just abandon that term. So he was very critical, and suddenly the term social is in the center of business discourses, when previously it was considered as something connected to socialism and we don't want that. So it's an interesting question. It kind of indicates a change in management discourses and business narratives to suddenly embrace the social as something important. And so initially I was just interested in a way in that link and in the rise of the social, and exploring critically and questioning critically whether that actually changes anything about how capitalism works, or is it just a change in rhetoric, in the ideology. But is it an ideology? Is it something that just hides the fact that actually everything goes on business as usual, but now we say it's social, or we say it's socially responsible, but is it really? Basically, it means when you look at the way the term social media is used at the moment, it is mostly just used to describe media that make it easier for us to communicate, to interact, to build communities. So that's usually the definitions of social media. So it mostly looks at the technical possibilities, and also if it makes us communicate more and collaborate more. But historically, again, the term social has a very different meaning as well. It's connected to social responsibility, social justice. It's opposed to individualism. It's connected to socialism rather than kind of an individualized capitalist neoliberal culture. So by truly social, I mean media that are not just social in the time of facilitating social interaction, but that are also socially owned and socially controlled. So, because when you look at Facebook, for example, it might be a social medium in the sense that it facilitates interaction, collaboration, exchange, and so on, but it's owned by a private company, and the private company controls Facebook. So it's not really social. It doesn't belong to society. It doesn't belong to everyone. We can't make decisions about how Facebook operates. It's private. It's not truly social. So truly social media would then be media that are owned and controlled socially by the people who use them, rather than by private corporate owners. One of the most obvious areas is the one that is directly related to the way they make money. And the way they make money is selling user data, information about users to advertisers. So there is massive surveillance of social media users, basically everyone using the internet going on. It is very hard for users of Facebook or Google to know what information are they storing, where is the information going, to whom are they selling this information, and all of that. So there's users, of course, have to agree to it when they sign up to Facebook or to social media, but at the same time, the users don't have much choice. There's a huge power inequality between the owners who can set the terms of use. They can decide how the data will be used, and the users can only have the choice to say either I agree or I don't use it. And not using it means you are excluded from quite an important aspect of social life. And platforms like Facebook, they have a monopoly, really. So that's the most obvious one. But I think that there is also underlying responsibilities that we don't think about so often. And that's, for example, the bigger issue of environmental responsibility. So social media depend on computer technology. There's lots of, we talk about social media and the internet often sometimes as cloud computing, which sounds like it's all stored in a cloud, and cloud sounds very nice and friendly and white and blue sky and clean, but actually the cloud is not clean at all. There's lots of energy that is needed in order to run massive data centers in which all the data is stored. So if you count together all the energy consumption of cloud computing in the world, so data stored online, then it produces as much energy as countries like, for example, Germany. So it's massive energy consumption that happens through cloud computing. So it's not necessarily environmentally friendly. The other thing is it depends on computer technologies, computers, which are often produced in a very irresponsible way. You just need to think about the example of Foxconn that has been in the news a lot, and horrible working conditions there in Apple's supplier factories, worker suicides, very unsafe working conditions, extremely long working hours, very low pay, social isolation of workers, exploitation of student interns. So there's massive violations of labor rights going on in the entire electronic supply chain. And so these technologies are really necessary for our social media landscape to exist. So there's big issues around environmental responsibility and responsibility in regard to labor rights, and both are structurally violated at the moment in contemporary kind of digital cultural corporations. You can always think about three important levels of analysis of how society operates, and there's one that is the economic, which is related to resources and to ownership and economic power, ownership power. Then there is the level of politics, which is related to decision power, so who makes decisions. And then there is a cultural level, which is about values and norms and ethics. And so what you can see is that capitalism is a system that is based on private property, private ownership, and so it's private. Ownership in capitalism usually is private, and in today's social media like Facebook, ownership is private. Then you have decision power is linked to ownership. So those people who own something, they can also control and make decisions. So it's the owner who decides, so decision power is private. And then what corporate social responsibility and social media do at the cultural level, at the level of norms and values, they use a social logic. They say suddenly it's about connecting, it's about collaborating, it's about togetherness, it's about cooperation. So they only change the cultural level, the level of the ideas, but they don't change the underlying political economic foundation. So in order to create an alternative model, you would have to also change the political and economic foundation. So you would have to create social media that are owned and controlled by the people using them. And so I think a model that is really a real existing alternative is cooperatives. So, for example, the model of worker cooperatives are organizations that are owned and controlled by the people that are working in them. So the owners are the workers, and the workers also make decisions. And so that changes it from being like a private owner and many workers who have nothing to say and who also don't own anything of the business into something where the people working in the organization are also the owners. So that's a really old model. It's as old as the history of capitalism. Already Karl Marx wrote about worker cooperation, and for him it was actually a model that showed that other ways of producing beyond capitalism are really possible, in which workers are not exploited by capitalists, but workers organize the production among themselves. So if you apply this model to social media, you would have to think, who are the workers? And who should own it? And in Facebook or Google, of course, part of the workers are the workers who are designing Facebook, the software engineers who work for Facebook. So they are the workers, so they should own it. But the workers also are everyone who uses Facebook, because they produce the content, and without the content that is produced by all the users, Facebook wouldn't exist. Yeah, so it's based on user-generated content, which is the dominant model of producing content on social media. So basically that would mean applying a cooperative model to social media would mean a model in which all the users are at the same time the owners, and make the decisions about how the platform operates, how it's run, how it is designed, how it, what functionalities it offers, and so on. And it will also be not like the private owner of Facebook who gets the profit, but it would be any wealth that would be perhaps created would be owned by all the people working in it. But it would also mean actually a non-commercial alternative to today's corporate media platforms, because there wouldn't be one owner who has an interest in making money. It would be a platform that just exists to serve to serve its users, and who are also the owners. So you go beyond a private commercial model into a more cooperative, commons-based model, which would then be this alternative you're talking about. So commons-based, so truly social media instead of corporate media. No, I don't think that it's possible to achieve a balance between corporate and social goals. In capitalism, I don't think that that's the I think that there can be, you can make individual improvements, punctual improvements. There can be certain business practices that are a bit less socially responsible than other ones, but any kind of corporate social responsibility initiative doesn't challenge the fact that it's corporate, and corporate means it's owned, it's privately owned, privately controlled. And as long as this is happening, there's some injustice going on, because the people who produce the wealth are not equally sharing it, and the people who produce goods and work in organizations have no say about how the organization is run and what it does. So there's always, as long as we there's a corporate model, there's always social irresponsibility going on.
Yeah.
So in that sense, corporate social responsibility is somewhat a contradiction. And we need to look into alternative models that are, for example, based on worker ownership, on commons, on cooperatives, that really try to put forward alternative ways of how ownership power and decision power are organized. And that is not just in social media, that's a change that needs to go beyond the media sphere and is a more general, requires more general social change.
Definition of social media tend to imply that only online media can be social, while other media such as the telephone, newspapers, TV, or radio are not. By regarding the sociality of the media as a question of technology, such analyses furthermore remain limited to the level of the technological productive forces. Therefore, a wider social and economic thinking for social media is necessary. In Marisol's opinion, a truly social media are media that are social both at the level of the productive forces and the relations of production. These thus are not only social in the sense that they enable social interaction, exchange, and cooperation, but also in the sense that their production, distribution, and consumption are compatible with general social well-being. In other words, a truly social media is a media that owned and controlled by users themselves. Nowadays, social media have many social problems. Facebook or Google collect users' data, spying on people, stealing users' information, and we don't have a choice to avoid that because they have lots of power in social as a whole. Corporate social responsibility is a big challenge for those social media corporates. Balance between benefits and social responsibility is hard to keep. Comparing other scholars' views, Marisol have the same opinion with Christine Fox and Dana Smith. They agree that corporate media as a part of media industry is belonged to capitalist society. The accumulation of capitalism is exploiting labor. This is the essential of capitalism. Therefore, achieving the balance between benefits and corporate social responsibility will be a big challenge for a long time future.